final question, because I think we're running out of time. I've just been working on Berkman's book now and then, and just AK Press have just republished it, What is Anarchism? Reading his letters in the 20s when he's working on the book and he's finding it very difficult, one of the things that he's trying to come to grips with, I think, in the book is, well, why haven't people come to this idea? This idea, which to me is just common sense, is just what we were saying earlier, this natural instinct almost to solidarity and support. And I've seen Russia, I've seen totalitarianism in action. Why haven't anarchist ideas had a greater impact in the world? I think he's talking about. Now that's 80 years ago nearly. And the question we're also facing as people who at least believe, what is it, Emma Goldman says, anarchism is the only belief that shows men and women their true self, who they can be. We see that, we know that instinctively, yet it's still had such a minuscule impact. Is that true, or is it?
I don't think it's true that it's had a minuscule impact. Right. I mean, a lot of the progressive social change of the past century, isn't anarchist. Like a progressive taxation isn't anarchist, Social Security isn't anarchist, but it's a reflection of attitudes and understanding, which, if they go a little bit further, do reflect anarchist commitment. And they are based on the idea that there really should be solidarity, sympathy, community, mutual support, mutual aid, and so on and so forth, and opportunities for creative action. And they're all based on these. They don't, they're subdued and channeled and modified, so they don't take real libertarian forms. But they're there, and they lead to social change. Why hasn't it gone further? Well, a large part of it is violence. So take, say, Berkman's experience in Russia. He entered into a violent totalitarian state. I mean, up until the Bolshevik takeover, the coup, revolution, whatever you want to call it, up until that, there were very significant popular libertarian, sometimes anarchist initiatives all over, running from peasant anarchism in the Ukraine to workers' councils, the Soviets, and so on and so forth. Well, they were simply smashed by force, by great violence. I mean, Lenin and Trotsky were totalitarian extremists, and they had a theory behind it. They were kind of dedicated Marxists who believed that a backward, primitive country like Russia can't go to socialism. The master's principles tell us that. And therefore we have to drive the country by force through the stages of essentially state capitalist development, and then ultimately something will happen. I mean, they weren't repeating the master accurately. This required suppression of many years of Marx's later work, which were literally suppressed when he was studying the peasant societies in Russia and so on and so forth. But that doesn't really matter. I mean, the point is they had a conception, they used it, they had the force. It wasn't easy, like, to destroy Makhno's movement or Kronstadt or to eliminate the Soviets and so on. It wasn't a trivial operation, but it was carried out. And Berkman saw it, and he saw a vicious totalitarian society arising very much the way anarchists had predicted.
Yes.
I mean, Bakunin spelled it all out. Yes. In fact, even Trotsky in his early work before he joined it said what was going to happen, as did Rosa Luxemburg and others. But it happened. And that's their variant. Our variant was different. Berkman was writing right after Wilson's Red Scare, which made the Patriot Act look like a Tea Party. It was a violent repression run by the progressives, Woodrow Wilson and others, and not just affecting, anarchists, not just Emma Goldman, who was kicked out, but even people pretty much in the mainstream, like Eugene Debs, leading labor figure. Wilson was completely vindictive. Tossed him into jail because he raised some questions about the nobility of Wilson's war and refused even to grant him an amnesty when everyone else was granted an amnesty. This was real vindictive. And it really crushed independent thought, crushed labor, had a big effect. So there's violence. Alongside the violence, there is the rise of massive propaganda. That's the rise of the public relations industry, to try to control attitudes and beliefs. But quite apart from that, there's something quite simple. I mean, there are disciplinary effects to the way life is organized. Take, say, students today. Students today have are more, in some ways, I mean, in a lot of ways, they're freer than they were 60 years ago, their attitudes and commitments and so on. On the other hand, they're more disciplined.
Yes.
They're disciplined by debt.
Yes, yes.
Part of the reason for arranging education so you come out with a heavy debt is so you're disciplined. Or let's take the last 20 years, the neoliberal years, roughly. What's called globalization, but neoliberalism. A lot of it is a very striking part of it is just aimed at discipline. It wants to eliminate freedom of choice and impose discipline. How do you do it?
Yeah.
Well, if you have a couple in the United States now working, each of them 50 hours a week to put food on the table, you don't have time to think about how to become a libertarian socialist. What you're worried about is, how do I get food on the table?
Where can I shop cheaply?
I mean, I got kids to take care of, and I got something to do with them. When they're sick, I've got to go to work, and what's going to happen to them? And that's well-designed techniques of imposing discipline. And there are costs to trying to be independent. I mean, just take, say, trying to organize a labor union. I mean, if you're the organizer, there's going to be a cost to you. I mean, maybe the workforce will gain, but there's a cost to you. We know there is. We know what the cost is, not just in energy and effort, but just in punishment.
Yes.
And the people who are living in fragile circumstances they make a reasonable calculation. They say, why should I take the cost? I have to get by. So there are many reasons why normal instincts and attitudes don't come out. But, over time they often do. That's why we have social change for the better.
Okay. Hey, thank you for your time. It's really kind.
Okay.
It's really kind of you. Great to meet you as well. Thank you for your thoughts.
Okay.